Welcome to Exposed and Broken YouTube channel. We uncover the secrets of love, betrayal, and the choices that change
Betrayal
everything.
Unveiled. A husband's journey to truth and redemption. The perfect illusion. Ethan had always believed his marriage to Claire was unshakable. They had been together for 10 years, building a life filled with laughter, shared dreams, and what he thought was mutual trust. Claire was the kind of woman who could light up a room with her smile, and Ethan often felt lucky to have her by his side. But as the years passed, subtle cracks began to form in their seemingly perfect relationship. Claire started coming home late, her excuses growing more elaborate with each passing week. "Work's been crazy," she would say, or, "I was out with the girls." Ethan wanted to believe her, but a nagging feeling in the pit of his stomach told him something was wrong. The first clue. One evening, Ethan noticed Claire's phone buzzing incessantly on the kitchen counter. She was in the shower, and though he hesitated, curiosity got the better of him. The screen lit up with a message from someone named Ryan. The text read, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." Ethan's heart sank. He felt a wave of nausea as he stared at the message, his mind racing. Who was Ryan? And what had happened last night? He decided not to confront Claire immediately. Instead, he resolved to gather more evidence. The investigation. Over the next few weeks, Ethan became a detective in his own home. He checked Claire's phone when she wasn't looking, tracked her location using a shared app, and even followed her one evening when she claimed to be meeting friends. What he discovered shattered him. Claire was meeting Ryan, a coworker, at a hotel. Ethan took photos as proof, his hands trembling as he captured the betrayal. He felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. How could the woman he loved do this to him? He knew he had to confront her, but he wanted to do it on his terms. The confrontation. Ethan planned a dinner at their favorite restaurant, the same place where he had proposed to Claire years ago. He wanted the setting to remind her of what they had once shared. As they sat across from each other, Ethan slid an envelope across the table. Inside were the photos he had taken. Claire's face turned pale as she looked at the evidence. "Ethan, I can explain," she stammered, but he cut her off. "Explain what, Claire? That you've been lying to me? That you've been sneaking around with someone else while I was here, trusting you?" His voice was calm, but the pain in his eyes was unmistakable. Claire broke down, admitting to the affair but blaming it on feeling neglected. Ethan listened, his heart breaking all over again, but he knew there was no excuse for what she had done. The revenge. Ethan decided he wouldn't let Claire's betrayal define him. Instead of lashing out, he took a calculated approach. He filed for divorce, ensuring that he had all the evidence he needed to protect himself in court. He also made sure their mutual friends and family knew the truth, refusing to let Claire spin the narrative in her favor. But Ethan's true revenge was in how he rebuilt his life. He threw himself into his work, started traveling, and reconnected with old friends. He even began volunteering at a local shelter, finding purpose in helping others. Slowly but surely, he started to heal. The redemption. Months later, Ethan ran into Claire at a coffee shop. She looked tired, her once bright smile dimmed. She tried to make small talk, but Ethan kept the conversation brief. As he walked away, he felt a sense of closure. He had loved her deeply, but her betrayal had taught him a valuable lesson. Sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. Ethan's journey wasn't just about uncovering Claire's infidelity, it was about rediscovering himself. And in the end, that was the greatest revenge of all. The aftermath. The days following the confrontation were some of the hardest Ethan had ever faced. The house felt empty, even though Claire was still there, packing her belongings. Every corner of their home reminded him of the life they had built together. The framed photos on the walls, the souvenirs from their travels, the little notes she used to leave him on the fridge. It was as if the ghost of their marriage lingered, haunting him with memories of what could have been. Ethan struggled with conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted to forgive Claire, to believe that they could somehow rebuild what was broken. But the other part, the part that had seen her lies and betrayal firsthand, knew that trust could never be restored. He realized that forgiveness wasn't about letting her back into his life, it was about freeing himself from the weight of her actions. The turning point. One evening, as Ethan sat alone in the living room, he found himself scrolling through old photos on his phone. He stopped at a picture of himself from years ago, smiling brightly at a beach with friends. He barely recognized the man in the photo. That version of Ethan was carefree, confident, and full of life. Somewhere along the way, he had lost himself, not just because of Claire's betrayal, but because he had poured so much of himself into their relationship that he had forgotten who he was outside of it. That night, Ethan made a decision. He wasn't going to let this define him. He wasn't going to let Claire's actions rob him of his future. He was going to rebuild, piece by piece, and find his way back to the man he used to be. Rebuilding. Ethan started small. He joined a gym, not just to get in shape but to channel his anger and frustration into something productive. He signed up for a photography class, rediscovering a hobby he had abandoned years ago. He even adopted a dog from the local shelter, a scrappy little mutt named Max who quickly became his loyal companion. As the weeks turned into months, Ethan began to feel a sense of purpose again. He reconnected with old friends, who welcomed him back with open arms. They had always suspected something was off in his marriage but hadn't wanted to interfere. Now, they were there to support him, reminding him of the value of true, unconditional relationships. A new perspective. One day, while walking Max in the park, Ethan met a woman named Sophie. She was sitting on a bench, sketching the trees around her. They struck up a conversation, and Ethan was surprised at how easy it was to talk to her. Sophie was kind, funny, and refreshingly honest. She had her own story of heartbreak, and they bonded over their shared experiences. Ethan didn't rush into anything. He was cautious, taking the time to get to know Sophie as a friend first. But as their connection grew, he realized that not everyone was like Claire. There were people in the world who valued honesty and loyalty, and Sophie was one of them. The final encounter. Months later, Ethan ran into Claire again, this time at a mutual friend's wedding. She was there with Ryan, though their body language suggested that things weren't as perfect as they seemed. Claire approached Ethan during the reception, her eyes filled with regret. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "For everything. I know I hurt you, and I'll never forgive myself for that." Ethan looked at her, feeling a strange sense of calm. "I appreciate that," he replied. "But I've moved on. I hope you find what you're looking for." As he walked away, Ethan felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He had forgiven Claire, not for her sake, but for his own. He no longer needed closure from her because he had found it within himself. A new beginning. Ethan's life wasn't perfect, but it was his. He had learned to embrace the uncertainty of the future, knowing that he had the strength to face whatever came his way. His relationship with Sophie blossomed, built on a foundation of trust and mutual respect. And though the scars of his past remained, they no longer defined him. In the end, Ethan realized that betrayal had given him an unexpected gift, the chance to rediscover himself and build a life that was truly his own. It wasn't the life he had planned, but it was a life worth living. The growth of a new love. Ethan and Sophie's friendship grew naturally, like a tree taking root in fertile soil. They spent hours talking about their lives, their dreams, and the lessons they had learned from their respective heartbreaks. Sophie was an artist, and her sketches often reflected the emotions she couldn't put into words. Ethan found himself drawn to her creativity and her ability to see beauty in the smallest things. One evening, as they walked along the beach with Max bounding ahead of them, Sophie turned to Ethan and said, "You know, you're stronger than you think. Most people would let something like what you went through destroy them, but you've turned it into something beautiful." Ethan smiled, her words warming him in a way he hadn't felt in years. "I don't know about beautiful," he replied, "but I'm trying. And meeting you has been a big part of that." Their relationship deepened over time, but Ethan was careful not to rush things. He had learned the hard way that trust and love couldn't be forced, they had to be earned. Sophie appreciated his honesty and patience, and together, they built something that felt real and unshakable. Facing the shadows. Despite the happiness he was finding with Sophie, Ethan knew he still had unresolved feelings about his past. The betrayal he had experienced had left scars, and while he had forgiven Claire, he hadn't fully forgiven himself. He often wondered if there was something he could have done differently, some way he could have saved their marriage before it fell apart. One day, Sophie noticed his distant expression as they sat together in her studio. "You're thinking about her, aren't you?" she asked gently. Ethan nodded. "I guess I am. Not because I miss her, but because I still don't understand how it all went so wrong. I keep asking myself if I could have done more." Sophie set down her sketchpad and took his hand. "Ethan, you can't carry the weight of someone else's choices. Claire made her decisions, and they had nothing to do with you. You're not responsible for her actions." Her words hit him like a wave, washing away some of the guilt he had been carrying. For the first time, he realized that he had been blaming himself for something that was never his fault. It was a liberating moment, one that allowed him to finally let go of the last remnants of his pain. A letter to the past. That night, Ethan sat down at his desk and wrote a letter to Claire. He didn't plan to send it, it was more for himself than for her. In the letter, he poured out everything he had been holding inside, the love he had felt for her, the pain of her betrayal, and the lessons he had learned from their time together. He ended the letter with a simple message: "I forgive you, and I forgive myself. I hope you find peace just as I have." When he finished, he folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. It was a symbolic act, a way of closing the chapter on that part of his life. A new chapter. As the months turned into years, Ethan's life continued to flourish. He and Sophie moved in together, creating a home filled with laughter, art, and love. Max became a constant source of joy, his playful antics reminding Ethan of the simple pleasures in life. Ethan also found success in his photography, turning his hobby into a career. His work, which often focused on themes of resilience and renewal, resonated with people in a way he hadn't expected. He even held an exhibition where one of his pieces, a photo of a broken chain bathed in sunlight, became the centerpiece. It was a metaphor for his journey, a visual representation of breaking free from the bonds of his past. The final encounter. Years later, Ethan received an unexpected message from Claire. She wanted to meet, saying she had something important to tell him. After some hesitation, he agreed, curious about what she had to say. They met at a quiet cafe, and Ethan was struck by how different she looked. The confident, vibrant woman he had once known seemed subdued, her eyes filled with regret. "I wanted to thank you," Claire said, her voice trembling, "for not destroying me when you had every right to. After we divorced, I hit rock bottom. Ryan and I didn't last, and I had to face the fact that I had ruined the best thing in my life. But that forced me to change. I've been in therapy, and I've been working on myself. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, and I'm trying to be better." Ethan listened, his emotions a mix of compassion and detachment. "I'm glad you're finding your way," he said. "We all deserve a chance to heal." As they parted ways, Ethan felt a sense of closure he hadn't realized he needed. Claire's apology didn't erase the past, but it reaffirmed his belief that people could change, if they truly wanted to. The legacy of resilience. Ethan's journey wasn't just about overcoming betrayal, it was about rediscovering himself and building a life that was authentic and fulfilling. He had learned that pain, while inevitable, could be a catalyst for growth. And in the end he found that the greatest revenge wasn't in hurting those who had wronged him, it was in living a life filled with love, purpose, and joy. As he stood in his gallery one evening, surrounded by his photographs and the people who had supported him, Ethan felt a profound sense of gratitude. His past had shaped him, but it no longer defined him. He was free, and for the first time in years, he felt truly alive. A life rebuilt. Ethan's photography career flourished in ways he never imagined. His work, which often captured raw emotions and the beauty of resilience, began to attract attention from galleries and art enthusiasts. His exhibitions became a space where people shared their own stories of pain and healing, inspired by the honesty in his art. Ethan realized that his journey wasn't just about his own healing, it was about helping others find their strength too. Sophie became his biggest supporter, encouraging him to push his boundaries and take risks. "Your work has a way of speaking to people," she told him one evening as they sat in their cozy living room, Max curled up at their feet. "You're not just taking pictures, you're telling stories that matter." Ethan smiled, grateful for her unwavering belief in him. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," he said, taking her hand. "You've been my anchor through it all." Their relationship deepened with each passing day, built on a foundation of trust, mutual respect, and shared dreams. They began to talk about the future, about traveling the world, starting a family, and continuing to grow together. For the first time in years, Ethan felt a sense of stability and hope. A new purpose. One day, Ethan received an email from a nonprofit organization that worked with survivors of domestic abuse and infidelity. They had seen his photography and wanted him to collaborate on a project that would raise awareness and provide support for those who had experienced similar struggles. Ethan was hesitant at first. The idea of revisiting the pain of his past felt daunting, but Sophie encouraged him to take the opportunity. "You've already turned your pain into something beautiful," she said. "This is your chance to help others do the same." Ethan agreed, and the project became a turning point in his life. He traveled across the country, photographing survivors and listening to their stories. Each person he met reminded him of his own journey, and he felt a deep connection to their resilience. The project culminated in a powerful exhibition titled Unbroken: Stories of Strength and Survival. The exhibition was a resounding success, drawing attention to the struggles of those who had been betrayed or abused and raising funds for the nonprofit. Ethan's work became a beacon of hope, showing that even in the darkest moments, there was a path to healing, of stability and hope. The proposal. As Ethan's life continued to flourish, he realized that Sophie had become an integral part of his journey. She wasn't just his partner, she was his best friend, his confidant, and the person who had helped him rediscover himself. He decided it was time to take the next step. On a crisp autumn evening, Ethan took Sophie to the park where they had first met. The leaves were a riot of red and gold, and the air was filled with the scent of pine and earth. As they walked hand in hand, Ethan stopped by a bench overlooking a small lake. "Sophie," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "you came into my life when I was at my lowest. You saw me for who I was, flaws and all, and you loved me anyway. You've been my light, my strength, and my reason to keep going. I can't imagine my life without you." He got down on one knee and pulled out a small velvet box. "Will you marry me?" Sophie's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. "Yes, Ethan. 1,000 times yes." The moment was simple yet profound, a testament to the love they had built together. As they embraced, Ethan felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He had found his way back to happiness, and Sophie was the heart of it all. The wedding. Ethan and Sophie's wedding was a celebration of love, resilience, and new beginnings. They kept it small and intimate, inviting only their closest friends and family. The ceremony took place in a sunlit garden, with Max serving as the ring bearer, much to everyone's delight. As Ethan stood at the altar, watching Sophie walk down the aisle, he felt a surge of gratitude. His journey had been filled with pain and heartbreak, but it had also led him to this moment. He realized that every step, no matter how difficult, had brought him closer to the life he was meant to live. During his vows, Ethan spoke from the heart. "Sophie, you've taught me that love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up every day, and choosing each other. You've shown me that even after the darkest storms, the sun can shine again. I promise to love you, to support you, and to walk beside you, no matter what life brings. Sophie's vows were equally heartfelt, and there wasn't a dry eye in the audience as they exchanged rings and sealed their promises with a kiss. A legacy of hope. Years later, Ethan and Sophie's life was filled with joy and purpose. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl, who brought endless laughter and chaos to their home. Max, now older but still spry, remained a beloved member of the family. Ethan continued his work as a photographer, but he also became a speaker and advocate for those who had experienced betrayal and abuse. He wrote a book about his journey, titled Shattered, Then Whole, a story of betrayal, healing, and love, which became a bestseller. The book resonated with readers around the world, offering hope and guidance to those navigating their own struggles. Sophie, too, found her calling, using her art to support mental health initiatives and create safe spaces for people to express their emotions. Together, they became a team, using their talents to make a difference in the world. The final reflection. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Ethan and Sophie returned to the park where he had proposed. As they sat on the same bench, watching their children play by the lake, Ethan reflected on how far he had come. "Do you ever think about the past?" Sophie asked, her head resting on his shoulder. "Sometimes," Ethan admitted, "but not with pain anymore. It's like looking at an old photograph. It's a part of my story, but it doesn't define me. What matters is right here, right now." Sophie smiled, squeezing his hand. "I'm glad you found your way back." Ethan looked at her, his heart full. "I didn't just find my way back. I found my way forward, with you." As the sun set over the lake, casting a golden glow over their family, Ethan felt a profound sense of peace. His journey had been long and difficult, but it had led him to a life filled with love, purpose, and hope. And for that, he was eternally grateful. Thank you for watching Exposed and Broken. I have been affected by infidelity. Help me buy a house by watching Exposed and Broken. See you soon.